Okay, this is Unit 4, Segment 2, Photosynthesis, History, and Scientists. This, just like Segment 1 was really short, so is this one. We walk through a little bit of the history, we name a few of the scientists, then we go through the photosynthesis equation, and you learn about a pigment chlorophyll. So, here we go. Van Helmont had set up an experiment around 1643-ish. He was testing the hypothesis that plants grow by taking material out of the soil. So he planted plants in the soil, and he would water them, let them grow over time, and he would mask the soil in the end, in the beginning and in the end, and he found that the soil did not change, if at all, that the mass for the plant must be coming from the water that he was giving the plant throughout its growth. So the mass of the plant was coming from the water. Later on, we'll find out that water is not making up most of the mass of the plant, but at this point in time, this is the conclusion. Later, we find out that it is actually carbon dioxide that makes up most of the mass for the plant growth, not the water. The water is going to go out as oxygen. So this kind of shows a little picture of what was done. So he took a willow sapling and he added dirt for it to grow in, and he took measurement, or he masked it out. As it grew, he found that the plant itself grew like in mass, but the soil itself did not change much. So the difference he found must be the water that he was adding. He did not realize that there was a gas also that was going in. So in 1771, Priestley set up, another gentleman scientist, set up another experiment. His hypothesis was that there's something in the air that fuels combustion, and plants are actually creating this something in the air. So what he did is he took a candle, covered it up, and noticed that the candle went out. Okay, it no longer had some kind of air to keep it going. But he went ahead and put a plant in the chamber, and he noticed that the candle continued to stay lit a lot longer. So he concluded that if a live plant was placed in the jar, the candle would actually burn longer, and this was because the plant was creating oxygen, making oxygen. And oxygen is the fuel that needs to, that maintains combustion. So that candle is consuming oxygen that plant was providing. So without the plant, the candle couldn't combust anymore. So it's kind of a big deal, because now we're seeing, we started to connect things that we can't see, like oxygen, to plants. Something's coming out of plants that are allowing the combustion to continue. There's something that plants are emitting, and that is oxygen. And then Ingenhousz in 1779, so shortly after, he added on to Priestley's experiment and said that, okay, Priestley, you are right, yes, the candle will continue, but the plant actually has to be in the presence of light in order for that oxygen to be made. So his conclusion added in light. Light is needed to produce the oxygen by plants, okay? So same scenario, but adding the light, and he found that the combustion of the candle was going to last a lot longer. You have to know the photosynthesis equation, and you have to know it well. You have to memorize, we're going to call these symbols. You have to memorize the elemental symbols and the numbers that go with it, and you have to memorize the words as well. And you have to memorize what is in the reactant side, what goes in, and what is in the product side. You have to know those things, guys. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to know it. So you need to write this down. It takes 6 carbon dioxide molecules going in from the atmosphere, plus 6 water molecules go into the plant in the presence of sunlight. So you have to add energy. You're probably not going to want to draw a sun, so you're going to need to add energy as a reactant on this side. And that will yield that will produce the products, which include C6H12O6. You learned this in middle school, and that is a sugar, glucose. So the plants take the sunlight plus the water plus the CO2, and they combine and make sugar, food. This is food. So they're making their own food in the form of sugars. And then they also will release out to the atmosphere 6 oxygen. So that is the photosynthesis equation. Memorize it, become one with it, write it over and over and over until you feel like you know it. Now, I was looking through some other things that you're going to be tested on. I want to make sure you include these things. So write these down. CO2, carbon dioxide, is actually the largest contributor to a plant's mass. So remember when, we had the test to show that, the soil didn't change, but the plant's mass changed, and they attributed it to water. Well, we later found out that CO2 from the atmosphere was actually contributing the most to a plant's mass, and that is because it's showing up in glucose. It shows up in this food, this stashed away energy. That's what this is. So it's actually a substance that gets packed in to the plant. And if we limit, the next point is talking about, if any of these reactants are limited in the environment, for example, if it doesn't rain for a long, long time, then photosynthesis comes to a halt, or at least, at the very least, slows down. So these are like limiting factors also, and sunlight is included in that. So this glucose production would slow down if any of these were limited in the environment. And by the way, photosynthesis, only in plants, my friends, only in autotrophs. If you remember that vocab word from the first segment. Only in plants or autotrophs, also called autotrophs. Here is another visual. You don't have to worry about writing anything down, but I wanted to show you another visual of what we see going on. So sunlight goes into the plant, gets absorbed by the plant. CO2 that was exhaled out by respirators gets pulled in by the plant, and then water uptake through the roots goes in the plant. So we have all 3 reactants: energy, CO2, and water going into the plant. Now what's coming out is the gas O2, which the mouse takes in and breathes in, and then the deer eating the plant is getting the actual sugar. So this deer is getting the energy that the plant made from the sunlight. Holy word, holy crazy. Chlorophyll. Chlorophyll A and B. These are 2 pigments. They're green, and they are found in the chloroplasts that absorb the light energy for photosynthesis. Chlorophyll is a big, big deal in plants. It makes the plants look green. Why are they green? And you do need to know about light. So why is anything green? Why does anything look green to us? And that's because whatever color an object is means that it's reflecting that particular color. The sun gives us all colors, Roy G. Biv. The sun and most lights will give us all the colors of the rainbow. But green, if something is green, that means it's reflecting the green light and absorbing all of the other colors. Okay? So if you're wearing a red shirt, it looks red to everybody because your red shirt is reflecting the red light and absorbing all the other colors. So you do need to know that. You need to be able to understand that. And that's what this is kind of showing you. You've got all these Roy G. Biv colors going into this green object. The only color that's being reflected, though, to your eyes is green, which is why things look green. This is why things look any color. Okay? But chlorophyll is a pigment. You need to know the word pigment that is found in plants, and it is responsible for absorbing that sunlight energy that is needed for photosynthesis, you guys. It's a reactant in that equation. You are also going to need to know about the factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis. You already kind of know, we already talked about that if any of the reactants in the equation of photosynthesis are limited, so if water, carbon dioxide, or even sunlight is limited in the environment, then it will slow the rate of photosynthesis. Those things are ingredients, they're needed. But you may not know that temperature also plays a role in how fast plants can photosynthesize. And this kind of makes sense when we consider in Michigan our winters, or even our fall. Fall, the temperatures drop, okay? And so photosynthesis comes to kind of a close or slows down. And the plants have adapted for that slowing by dropping their leaves. They're not going to waste the energy to maintain those structures, so they just drop them. So temperature, if it's outside the range, too hot, it actually can be too hot, and it can definitely be too cold. The enzymes won't function right for the process of photosynthesis, and it will slow down or stop. The intensity of light also can make an impact. Usually the more light the better, except it can reach a max capacity, and it will stop the process of photosynthesis altogether if there's too intense of light. And there's so many more factors, but you're going to need to be able to list a few of them on any quiz or test. So make sure those things make sense to you. Write down questions if they don't. I think that was the last thing for this segment. So